Good evening and welcome to the hot seat of Friday, where I host pundits and journalists to discuss topical issues that have happened throughout the week. My name is Derek Wandera. A lot has happened through this week and I have a very unbalanced panel. Very, very unbalanced, and I don't know how I'm going to balance this, but we shall be joined by other people along the way. I have my senior man, Obed Katurebe. After a very long time, welcome back to the show as the executive director, acting
exactly
of the Uganda Media Center. Welcome to the hot seat.
Thank you so much, Mr. Wandera. Glad to be back here. Taking a sabbatical leave, but I'm back.
Yeah, welcome back. The time you left, quite many things were
changed.
We're here and there. So many things have changed, and even the studio now, you can see it.
Everything looks good.
About
Thank you so
2 years
much.
or a year and a half or something.
Maybe.
Yeah. Sure. Also in the studio is my man, Gomba's finest, Isaac Kayonde. Yes. Welcome to the show. How is the field? How does it feel out there?
Glad to be back. The field is very tough, I can say. The voters are very tough, but positive. I think we will nip it in the bag.
Oh,
yeah,
great.
That's the confidence.
Oh, that's very nice to hear. Now, this week has climaxed with quite eventful issues happening and very important stuff happening. I saw the Electoral Commission, I would say finally, handing over the certificate of registration to the PFF, that is People's Front for Freedom, the one that's headed and engineered by the likes of Dr. Kiza Besigye, who is in prison now, Lord Mayor Elias Lukwago, and the Semujungandas of this world. Majorly they break away from FDC of Najana Nkumbi. That's a topic we're going to handle, but later. Right now, what the hot potato in our hands is the State of the Nation's address that was happening yesterday. And I know when we come back here next week, we shall be discussing the budget reading. I want to pick from your minds, Obed, what stands out for you. I know probably you could have been privy to some of the information that was churned out yesterday in the State of the Nation's address, but what do you think stands out? And I will be very intentional to also ask you on what you think the president missed in some of the things that Ugandans need to hear.
Well, that would be very difficult for what he missed, because the man really touched every sector of the economy and politics anyway. But what stand out was, in my view, a quite interesting story of Uganda, quite a resilient country. The economy grew by 6 point something, which is close to 7.3 percent. The inflation has been contained at 3.7%. The size of the economy continues to grow, and like the president illustrated with pictorial evidence, there is a massive development in the area of agro-processing and deliberate investment in that sector, the coffee industry, and the manufacturing sector, innovations. There's quite so many things that point to growth of the economy non-stop going forward. You know, the country suffered COVID shocks for the first 3 years of this Kisanja, but this has allowed us to show a country that is resilient. And even when you saw the president, he was in very good moods, going by what he was even showing with evidence. Industries across the country, big. We are seeing a lot of foreign direct investment into the country. The oil story that is almost coming to an end, because come rain or shine, by next year, the first inflows of oil revenue are going to be realized. So, and of course, without forgetting how the president assured the country that for peace and security, it will be guaranteed. We can feel secure. We can go about our business as usual. There was nothing that was grooming. Everything seems to be ticking, unless someone is saying you are lying. You remember when he said, look, Uganda has been recognized as the 7th fastest growing economy by World Bank or IMF. So unless someone is saying what he's saying was not true, was cooked, or it was AI, otherwise everything points to a good direction.
Obed, when I'm talking to you, I'm handling the government spokesperson here, and one of the things I want to show you and point to you is if President Museveni missed anything, he missed out on the political question of this country, one of which the country has been crying about. I wrote a story on the eve of the reading of the State of the Nation's address, and I asked the question, will President Museveni tackle the question of human rights violation, the rampant abductions and kidnaps in the opposition, and the kind of political environment that's brewing towards the 2026 election. And that's something that he never touched. If he did, I feel many Ugandans were left with so many questions and answers that he gave. What do you think about it?
Well, for as long as next year, there are all indications that there will be a general election in this country, and nobody will stop anybody from participating. There was nothing to show. He talked about the coming generations a little bit. And for as long as everything points that there will be general election and every office in this country will be contested for, how we behave, all of us, including government and us practical actors, is something that we will debate and continue to discuss, so that the management and the process of election does not degenerate to levels that we all don't admire. I think that's something that we can all discuss. But what is reassuring me is that there are all indications by government, by the political leadership who are in charge, that points that come rain or shine, the elections for all elective offices in this country will be contested for, and nothing will stop that one.
Ladies and gentlemen, we've been joined by senior journalist, now a political admirer, but also a participant in Burahia County in Kabarore District. Charles Mongia, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be back on the Friday Pan on KFM.
Yeah.
Yep.
How is it? How is the field?
Interesting. Lots of lessons to learn. Tough in many respects, but it's an exercise worth engaging in. It's important for us to get from behind the microphone and sit opposite you and try to answer some questions that we've been posing to many other people, but also experience what it means to be an actor in the politics of this country and not just a commentator.
There's quite an avalanche of questions I would like to ask you, and so many Ugandans especially who have been seeing you, but I'll get back to you.
Fire off when you're ready.
I'm also joined by Bob Muhumuza, who is a political analyst, and welcome to the show. This should be your first time, isn't it?
Thank you. Well, it is my first time on the hot seat.
Yes.
But I've been here before when it was Mwenda Live.
Oh, okay.
And of course, I'm a proud contributor as an analyst, political of the affairs.
And I want to start off with you exactly. After Obed here, the State of the Nation's address, what do you think President Museveni missed? What do you think are some of the misses? What are the hits? In about a minute.
Well, we have had a few State of the Nation address from President Museveni. Pretty much we know what to expect. If a few times there's a lot to appreciate from him, and many times also there's a lot to criticize. If you have been a while for some time, like we have been, those that have witnessed pretty much over the time that he has been here, you can say many things before he actually says anything. But most importantly, what I would have expected is how he expects the country to survive without him.
Okay.
You know?
The transition question.
Exactly, the transition question. This is a question that probably he does not want to
even think about.
think about. He must. But I think probably he does not have so many people to trust with this kind of subject, which apparently is the biggest thing that we have to talk about. He has done so many things for this country. He has done so many things that we look at and we appreciate, and many that we don't appreciate. So the best gift that he can give to this country right now is a smooth and peaceful transition.
Yeah.
And with people like Charles who are coming now into politics, people with sober minds like him, you know, if he can trust these young men and those in his circles, then the country can forge ahead and build on what he has established to deliver the expected.
Yeah, Charles will have his own dance on the stage when time comes. But I want to go to Isaac. Isaac, you've been on this show several times, and you were trying to bolster and boast about the parish development model, which President Museveni tackles. But we've seen his countrywide tours, visiting one cow, pictures of him seeing one pig and stuff like that. And to be honest with you, it doesn't really portray what the kind of picture Ugandans want to see. What do you think are some of the things that he mentioned that you feel need improvement or need somewhere a different way of tackling?
Thank you, Derek. But maybe to start with, we have observed many states of the nation from President Museveni. What caught my eye with this one was he has moved away. I think the advisors, the Obeds here, are fine-tuning him. You know, before the State of Nation addresses, he always made reference to 1986 throughout the speech. But this time,
he spoke that 13 times.
No, yeah, but this time, I mean, he spoke 13 times out of a 52-page document. What I'm saying is that the major components or aspects of the statistics that he was providing were more recent. You know, he was going back 5 years, 3 years, 2 years. You know, the coffee figures he was giving year on year. 2022, 23, 7 million bags. 2024. You know, he's refined his speeches to fit what a State of Nation address is. You know. Basically, because we had a State of Nation address last year, we were hoping for him to focus on what was achieved last year, the hits and misses of that particular budget, and whether he achieved the things that he had desired. Sure. So for me, there's a big improvement in his accountability of the nation, and I think that's what people want him to continuously do. The things that he missed are the things that are on our lips and minds about the current security situation, the preparations for the elections, and that kind of thing. But I feel like, of course, he has another speech next week, so maybe he will incorporate it. I don't know. Maybe
President Museveni talked about when he comes back next week, there are two issues that he's going to be tackling, and that's corruption and
regional integration.
And regional integration. Yes, those are the things that he emphasized when he comes back next week.
Well, whatever those might be, he might want to add in. I mean, feedback from this State of the Nation might overwhelm him, and he puts one or two things in there about security and elections coming. But that said, I mean, he's overall optimistic, very good picture. He painted for us a picture of a country moving progress economically. You know, he gave us the figures, and these figures are not his. These are IMF and World Bank figures. You know, the stability of the currency, the best performing currency, it has gained 6.1% on the dollar. You know, the growth rates, we are 7th in the world, and in Africa maybe we are. You know, we are around 5th or 6th there. You know, in the region, we're doing well. We see this, the collections, revenue collection has moved from 12% 12% of GDP. It has now moved to 14%. You know, that's huge if you look at it in terms of real collection of the numbers. I mean, of revenue. And I think overall, he really portrayed what the aspirations of the nation economically.
Yeah.
What he might not have done is to give us the issues
in summary.
the issues that people were looking for, the endemot ways, those kind of things, the conversations we're having every day about the current security situation.
Isaac, thank you very much. I want to come to you shortly, Charles. The political question, the questions we've been addressing, the questions we've been asking tough to the government, to those people that will power. That's the kind of conversation that the President Museveni alluded in his conversation. What do you think, and what's your reading about where the country is going, but vis-a-vis what the state of the nation is?
Well, let me start where Isaac started from as well. I think for in many speeches or State of the Nation addresses that the President has given, I felt that this latest State of the Nation address was an attempt to give a State of the Nation, more than any has given in many years. He actually did compress the issues he tackled. I'm just looking at the introduction. That recognition of people who have passed recently, and he doesn't discriminate. He picks everybody who has passed on over the last year. Members of the opposition, so it starts with the Pope, members of his government, and I thought if you want to tie this together with that recent apology, you realize that we're coming to a point where he's realizing that I am speaking to people I need to resonate. So the lectures that say we were at war for 500 years and on at peace recently, talking about a cup of 1986 as the benchmark to tell us where we are, which has often denied us the question of where we ought to be as a country. But when you look at what he provided yesterday, you realize that we can have a conversation that talks about this is where we are today. Where ought we to be? Why are we not there? We can have that conversation with this kind of State of the Nation address. And I'm hoping that he continues on this trajectory when he gives his budget speech next week. If we move like that, then we can have a real conversation about where this country is. Now, the questions that you raise, until you get into the murky waters of politics, until you're forced into a situation where you're going to live with the realities and the contradictions that this country is, you will not appreciate where this country is. You'll not appreciate what conversations we ought to be having with ourselves as a people, and you may not appreciate the challenges this country faces. I can tell you, Derek, to be out there looking to be elected to parliament, and you're confronted with the real questions about infrastructure. When you get out of what is attempted to be done in Kampala here, with the flyovers, the improvement, the urban infrastructure improvement agenda, and you see the reality of roads in the countryside that you have to move, you meet people struggling to get themselves out of poverty, and what is holding them back, the reality of how people appreciate and contextualize money in elections. It's a terrible bag of contradictions that this country is. Yes, signs of progress, but also a significant journey to move it from where it is and has been.
Yes.
And
30 seconds, Charles.
Yes, and a significant disconnect between different layers of people and appreciation of what electoral democracy is supposed to deliver to Ugandans. The conversations are quite intriguing if you get into them. You can write a PhD thesis out of them.
Someone says the figures were a boardroom figures, rosy boardroom figures, but do not actually touch the real issues of the economy. Let's go for a quick commercial break, and when we return, we shall delve into that and more. KFM, and welcome back from that quick commercial break. My name is Derek. I have Obed Katureve, I have Isaac Kayonde, I have Charles Mwangu-Hampaji, and I have Bob Muhumuza. Guys, we are discussing the State of the Nation's address, and I don't know why this panel, for instance, that I'm having, and it's very, 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 very unbalanced. On any day, I'm not going to have such.
How do you mean unbalanced?
Unbalanced. Because it's seemingly yellow. I am yet to. I am yet to. But
Bob is yellow.
I am yet to find out whether Bob is yellow. But one of the issues that a common Ugandan, away from the figures of the growth rate of the GDP at 6.3 or 6.7% over the past 1 year or whatever. I mean, that's what we were having before the COVID came in, because when COVID comes in, then we sink into the 3.2 thereabout, but then we started regaining at the same rate, and we haven't gone beyond that. So I don't know whether the improvement, because the improvement any Ugandan would be having, who is looking figures, would be we have improved and we are now rolling at 7 or even 10 or double figures, like some of the countries in this region are doing, like Tanzania has attempted to grow at 9 point something % over the last after COVID. And away from that, many Ugandans, who is living in Kamocha, who is living in Busia, in Samia-Bugwe North and wherever, I don't think these figures actually resonate to me. And I want to give it to you, Bob. These rosy figures do not replicate what exactly our people in the north, our people in the east, and our people where, for instance, Charles is coming from, and he could actually speak from an experience point of view. What do you think are some of the things that President Museveni needs to address more than just giving us the figures?
First of all, let me first get you on the balance of the panel. I don't think it is all yellow.
I said seemingly.
I have a background of an interesting background. Because I'm a founding member of the FDC. And I have never changed from that. But I really appreciate a few good things that are there to appreciate.
Okay.
Are you in Katonga or the other side?
I am in the middle.
In the middle. You have not yet gone to, you have left Najanankum, but you haven't reached Katonga.
Exactly.
Okay, the question.
When you talk about the rosy figures, especially about the development of the country, which rosy figures are you talking about? 6, 7?
Yes.
6,
7? And you call that rosy? Really?
Absolutely.
It is not rosy.
In the world, 7.
We could do a lot better than that.
7% in the growth rate of the world is.
We could do a lot better than that. And we all know that we actually could do. Okay, let us call it rosy. Those figures are shared between you, me, and Charles. You cannot use them as a blanket reflection of what the real development and the impact of it down on the grassroots person. You know? So I'll come to what needs to be done, and we are not doing, and the president is not doing. It's a lot. You may not blame him, but he could do a lot better. Look at agriculture. Tell me what his country has done for agriculture or develop the agricultural sector in this country. How much budget do you give to agriculture, but that's what you give to defense? You know? If you do not substantially work out programs that advance these sectors, that touch the lives of the ordinary people, it is not going to be impactful around the clock. So if anybody disagrees with me on that, I don't know your line of argument.
I want to go to Charles here because we want to speak with some. He gets out of this city more than any of us here in this studio. Charles, you were in Kabarole in your constituency 5 years ago, and you saw the kind of poverty lines those people lived. You are there 5 years later and asking them for more mandate. Looking at how you left them and how you have found them, and vis-a-vis the kind of rosy picture that President Museveni is trying to create or trying to paint in his State of Nation address, is it realistic?
I did talk about a bag of contradictions that this country is. There are two ways to look at it. One is when you balance the figures that you're talking about and the aspirations of the people, you get a completely different picture. Sometimes we may calculate our inadequacies, our poverty, by the ambition we have or where we want to be. Sometimes it is the reality on the ground that you don't seem to see that much progress in individual households. You don't seem to see that. When you see the despair that is on the faces, written on the faces of people in the countryside, in those rural areas, when you listen to the questions that their demands, what are they asking of government? When you look at the limitations to those expectations and the frustrations, you realize that we can talk figures, but you need to translate those figures into what someone sees on the ground. But I can tell you something, Derek and our listeners, that when a country is making some progress, the aspirations of individuals also shift. Where a person is looking at themselves and their worry is, my child is going to school, yes, but what kind of school are they going to? You're dealing with a different kind of question. When the worry is, yes, I have my garden. What can it produce for me for what I need to do next? It's a bit of a complex thing to disentangle, to balance the position someone finds themselves in vis-a-vis where they were 5 years ago and what the aspiration is.
Is that what
for
is
the
in
future?
Kabarole?
And I think you seem to find a little bit of that. Okay. You walk around Kabarole and see excruciating poverty in some corners of the district. You'll move in some other corners and find a bit of affluence. And then you're going to ask the question, what explains this? I mean, we are disappearing our swamps in Fort Portos, tourism city, like swamps are disappearing in other places. High rises are going up, and that's the aggregation that, the averaging that Bob was talking about. You get Sudiri's money, you get a guy in the extreme back corner near the Kibale Forest National Park, and put our income together, and then you divide for GDP, and you get your 7% growth rate. I think that's the biggest contradiction. What we ought to be looking at is where a lot of money is stuck in the pockets of a few and struggling to permeate to a majority bottom that is stuck at the bottom, and then you come to the middle. Professionals, people like us here, struggling to get to the top, but it's such a huge struggle. It's such a huge struggle for many people. Is there money? Yes. You see it around, all over. It's in these neighborhoods here. They've been transforming every single day, every single day. When people are thinking there's no money in the economy, you see money. The evidence of money is available everywhere. When you ask, where's the money? You can't find it because it is concentrated in the pockets of a few. Can interventions like PDM, for example, actually succeed in redistributing that money? The concept is good. It's delivered on the ground. It's dynamic. It's different. And I ask myself, I say, why?
As you summarize,
yes. Why wouldn't government have thought of providing what was provided before? Provide common basic services that if you have 50 households in a village, each of them sharing between 1 cow and 5 cows, provide a centralized dipping system like used to happen before. Let everybody come, and on a particular day, everybody is able to dip their cows in a centralized way. So a village dips 200, 300 cows on a same day, where standards are monitored, and everybody knows this is what we have. So that when you go to production of milk, for example, or beef, for example, you know that the standard is good because all these cows we can guarantee we're deep. But when you have a Derek here who has his cow and he sprays it as and when he can afford, then you have Isaac here, he's spraying his cows every 3 days. Every 3 days. That kind of contradiction, does it create the necessary balance?
And then there is a Bob who doesn't even have a cow.
Yes, who doesn't even have a cow?
I come to you, Isaac. Those disparities are grave and glaring, and I don't know why the president doesn't even tackle the glaring differences and those kind of the reality on ground.
First of all, I want to beg to differ with Bob on people who make arguments based on what they visualize or their emotion. That what statistics do for us is put the sum of everything into perspective. For example, I'll give you something. He was talking about, the president touched it, but it was too technical for many to understand. He gave the figure of what they call the Gini coefficient. He said it had moved from 41 to 38. That is a statistical measure used to measure the income inequality, right? And he showed how it had dropped. But let me give you a live example of how every one of us in this room would miss it. That you see those border guys, there are so many right now in Kampala. On average, a border guy makes 20 to 30,000. If you multiplied that times 30, it would give you 900,000. 900,000 is people working in banks, tellers, are earning 650, 700, you know. So the border guy is earning more than the teller in the bank, but the teller in the bank is thought to be more elite than the border guy.
By the way,
let me give you another number.
Interjection.
Yeah.
You can believe me, and I can assure you that 70 or 80% of the borders that you see riding on the border, none of those guys own those borders.
That's okay.
Charles knows this, that most of them are on loans, and the 30,000 you have to pay 20,000.
Whichever
and
way
those are some of the realities we want you to speak to.
I'm looking at income. I'll give you another example. He gave a figure for coffee. Coming from 2017-18, we were earning as a country about $850 million US from coffee. This is 2018-2017. Today, we are earning 1.8 billion. Guess who grows coffee?
Peasants.
The peasants. Today, I've been in Gomba campaigning. I've gone to a guy hiring security to guard a 4-acre coffee farm so that he gets the value. Now, his life may not
talk
change.
about cocoa growers in Wundebujo.
Yeah, you know. So for me,
where KJ is selling for 30K.
You can imagine. So Bob will probably want to see the transformation of an individual from wearing an old shirt to a new one. But the villager those are not his aspirations. When the country we measure how much a person has earned collectively, we shall know that for sure cocoa farmers are earning money. But their life may not change. He may not buy a car, he may not buy anything.
So Obed, and he brings up a very good discussion about coffee, and we know how much farmers have been crying about coffee. The drastic drop in the prices of the coffee from the farmer themselves, the indigenous farmer, vis-a-vis the people who have been kind of, and you saw the coffee bill, for instance, when it was coming, and the impression that people had, the certifications and stuff like that. The president doesn't speak to those. He speaks to this person who is growing coffee at a bigger volumes than the one who is growing and
Wandera, that's not true. Foremost, 95% of these coffee farmers who have experienced a boom because the prices are good, you'll be sure they are beneficiary of the Ndokwa that was given by government at zero cost by Operation Wealth Creation. They were here, they delivered those seedlings, and most people, including my very good friend who comes from Kunjiri, and he's a died in the wool FDC supporter. He got seedlings and has 15 acres, free of charge.
How has that been distributed? Because my grandfather was telling me he educated all my fathers off coffee, but now he can't do that.
Let me come, my brother. Because those seedlings were not given to the privileged. Every person that had a farm would go and access those seedlings and they plant it. And that's part of the coffee boom that we are hearing about. But let me come to what Bob said, and which is a common talked about subject. And incidentally, we missed the point of how much is always dedicated to agriculture as a sector. Forget about this money that is being put in irrigation schemes, which we talked yesterday, and these are the big tractors that have now been given to people to assist in their big farm operations. I want you on the table and our listeners to know how much government invests in most sectors of the economy and how they feed into agriculture investment. If they are opening up roads to every corner of this country, what are those roads going to do? They're going to assist this farmer to access the market. That's an investment in agriculture. I come from a very heavily matoke producing district, Isinjiro. Before the roads were tarmacked up to the Tanzanian border and the other rural ones opened by these machines that each district got, matoke would ripen in the farms from this month of May up to September. Would be passing every matoke farm to be smelling. Rainy season, milk would be poured because trucks would not access those direct plants. But when they opened up for the first time, that's when we saw the mushrooming of iron-roofed houses, each house with a solar panel. You ask, why did you say, oh, you don't know what matoke is doing to our people. When they are drunk in their trading centers, they boost the economics of matoke. But they were opened up because there was investment in roads. Then when the government is investing in rural electrification, for example, extending power to every corner of the country, it's investing in agriculture. Because agro-processing, you must have power to run those milling machines, those milk cooling plants, to have a value product, which is an agricultural product that we put in the market. So I do believe without any fear in my heart, that President Museveni's deliberate intervention, especially these things that you tend to bastardize, you, the elites of Kampala, Emioga, PDM and whatever, have changed people's lives. Because this money that goes into organized circles, trading circles, and most of them, my colleague Bob, are into agricultural business. They are not into import and whatever. Yes. So even this other money that has been poured to the people is meant to ensure what we are talking about, uplifting the lowest of the ladder to shift to a commercial economy. That's why, and I don't know those who throw out figures, when you are saying that the people who are now living beyond the poverty line have dropped to
40 something,
16%.
I want to.
Let me just a second. Do you know how they get to know that people have come out? If you listen to what questions those guys of UBOS were asking us in the last census, they would be asking you, your house, how is it? How is it roofed? Is it you have a concrete word? How do you travel to work? If you are saying a person who say when you are going to Bari or to church, you jump on a boda, which is 5,000 to and fro, even if it is 2, that means your life has shifted a little bit, and that's how those statistics of those who are living beyond poverty line and those who are still up are reached at. They are not concocted.
Thank you, Obed. There is so much going on, and recently someone told me that they are buying more Irish from Kenya than they are getting from Kabale, because there is not a lot that's being produced from there. But that's a conversation we shall carry after this quick commercial.
8 p.m.
Welcome to the Hot Seat tonight, where I feature pundits and journalists to discuss very topical issues that happen throughout the week. My name is Derek. I have Bob, I have Charles, I have Isaac, and I have Obed, discussing the State of the Nation's address. Many a time Uganda has been described as a food basket without food. Charles, in terms of the realities of how agricultural transformation is happening in the most rural places or parts of this country. And we just saw the figures from UBOS, for instance, show that about 38% are still in subsistence kind of farming, whereby they're just growing food for eating. And some of them cannot even eat enough through the season. What do you think this State of the Nation's address ought to have tackled in terms of agriculture in this country and how we are moving forward?
I think that is an area where we are really, really stuck. Even in the mindset of government, we haven't come around to thinking agriculture in a commercial way. Even at governmental level, we are still thinking subsistence. Even the PDM money we're talking about, it is still thinking subsistence agriculture. We haven't moved from there decisively. I've been asking one question when I move around the villages of Brassia, and especially when I meet the elite from Toro. I ask the question, what do we do as the people of Toro that is for commercial agriculture? Where do we earn our income? Yes, you have a backyard with a banana plantation, so you have some matoke there. When the season is good and matoke is in season, you can sell some. Now the price has collapsed.
You have
can
about
pick,
1 minute. Yeah.
Yes, you can pick a bunch of a healthy bunch of matoke at 5,000 shillings. A huge bunch of matoke, the ones we buy at 40k here. When milk is in season, rainy season, the price collapses to 400 shillings, 500 shillings.
A liter.
When it is out of season, because everybody has no milk anyway, the liter will go up. And these inconsistencies and these contradictions permeate through even government thinking. Government is looking at macro figures. It's not looking at the micro ones. The micro ones. And for me, that is a problem. I've asked, why do we have a minister for economic monitoring? If you're a minister for economic monitoring, and we have gone through a wave like, for example, a COVID situation, businesses are closing, businesses are collapsing. A business that was posting NSSF contributions, pay as you earn, for 400 employees, now is sending you for 50 employees. And no one is bothered, no one looks out and says, wait a minute, what has happened? Because I think someone at URA, someone at NSSF, someone in the Ministry of Economic Monitoring ought to be looking out for how many are like those. But because one business is collapsing and another one has opened and picked up a few people, you think everything is okay. I think those are the contradictions that limit our thinking beyond, from going beyond subsistence. Even the best agriculturalists, they are subsistence in their thinking. They are not in commercial.
Yeah. Obed, the glaring truth about subsistence farming and how we have failed to grow out from that area is one that is of concern. How do you think that when President Museveni comes back in 7 days should be tackling? How does he have to tackle the question of subsistence?
Well, I don't know why you say in the opening remarks, you say food basket without food, and yet we feed literally our neighboring countries. If you see the volumes that go to South Sudan,
I am a person from the border in Hotseat.
And
I know how it keeps fluctuating.
You are as a country across, and how they've already suffered with trying even to ban our milk and our chicken and our maize. I don't think all that surplus that is exported to our neighbors to a level of them being concerned and think we are stifling their agricultural.
No, they don't, because of that, because of the qualities, because of the quality of the.
Our milk was not stopped because of quality. There was cartels that were failed to we are finishing the agro business across the borders. Anyway, that's a story for another day. But maybe why we cannot open up for big commercial farmings. One thing is because of the land policy. And you dare go into land policy to change the land policy in Uganda, probably will be killed. You have these people, land in Uganda, the land system in Uganda is privately owned. Some Isaac probably owned a square mile. He has 20 children or 30 or 40. When he dies, it is fragmented. And now it becomes very difficult to do extensive commercial farming like the one you see in Zimbabwe and whatever because of our land policy. Land is so emotive to us. We want to have our own small lands and be kings on those small lands. But maybe we need to listen to what the president has said. This 4-acre model, we need to get out of vast chunks of land. Utilize our small chunks of land professionally. To those who are doing kind of the indoor farming, if it is cows, can do the indoor and have more yields than vast chunks of land. So we need to change our mindset, educate our people, and we do, because we will not change the land policy in Uganda. It's very difficult to tackle, and you think you can, that will be the last day you'll be in office if you want to change the land policy in Uganda.
The economic question certainly in a country like Uganda circles around agriculture and how you and me are gaining from it. But it's a question that the president doesn't deal with decisively in terms of shifting the 39 from the subsistence to commercial agriculture that we hope that can deliver this country from the poverty lines.
Again, like I said, people fear what they don't know.
Fear for the unknown.
No, like there's nothing wrong with a nation being subsistent. The only difference is that whether they join the money economy, which the president, I think, in his speech touched. You see, you're talking about commercial farming. Commercial farming entails machinery, entails huge chunks of land and everything. Today, the 38% that they are talking about are people who are not in the money economy. You get, they are subsistence in that they are growing their own food. But I can tell you, people in Busoga are growing sugarcane and buying food elsewhere.
Don't talk about the sugarcane question.
That question, I have a problem with it, yes. But I'm just trying to give you an example. That they are suffering, right? Because they lost the subsistence. They went commercial sugarcane growing. You know, it's a plantation crop. It can't be grown on things, so they aggregate, they release their land, they do all that stuff.
You have 1 minute.
Now they are starving. For me, the issue here is that people who are growing or people who are subsisting in nature, have they joined the money economy? Are they growing crops and selling surplus? And that is what the president, I think, in his speech hinted to, is that there are many more people now who are growing food and taking surplus to the market, while before they were not taking surplus. They were just growing food and eating it, and it was rotting in the gardens. So for me, there's nothing wrong with subsistence. I'll give you the example of Zimbabwe. When Mugabe chased the white farmers
and gave land to those
and gave land back, there was a drop in production. Inflation went up. You know, everything went south. But gave land back to the locals. Now what has happened is that the locals have gone ahead and grown now on their own, because they never owned the land. Now they own the land. Now they've started growing. Guess what? Zimbabwe has a surplus of wheat. You know, so the issue here is how do we aggregate? How do we aggregate this farming that we do on either home? It's just like our coffee today. Coffee numbers have gone into the 8 million bags, but there's no commercial farmer yet in this country who has a 200, 300 square acre of coffee.
I want to come to you, Bob, and so significant in this question of commercialization of agriculture, which we think that could actually help this country in terms of per capita income. Where do you think the gaps and the nooses need to be tied?
Well, before I go deep into that question, you see, the priorities of our government are confusing. I can tell you that the government of President Museveni would rather invest in good cadres like Obed, who can come and speak so nicely about the matter,
and Isaac,
rather than do something about that matter.
I'm not paid by this. I suggest Obed.
So these gentlemen are doing a good job speaking for the failings of government and painting a bad picture good. But to me, it is okay. I actually appreciate what you say because it is real. It is actually there. Those small gains are there and can be seen. But my question is, how much better would we do? You know, yes,
true.
How much better would we do? I have my concerns on why we are not going to do any better, regardless of the small gains that we are making by the effort that government is putting. When that question comes on the table on why we can't do any better, people will address it. But let me tell you this. The government will do a lot better in organizing the communities. Do crop production mapping.
Yeah, we have 30 seconds to go.
Do crop production mapping. Do market mapping across the region. Interlink the business communities across the region for which product comes where, who wants this. You take this, you bring that. You know, the question of land, like you say, Obed, is very critical, and President Museveni is good by that, addressing it, where he says he advocates for non-land fragmentation. You know, that is a very good point. But how do you counter it if you want to organize your people to overcome that problem? Organize people in communities.
Yeah, unfortunately. Yeah,
you know?
Unfortunately, that's all we had for our time on this show. Let's wait for next Friday with a bigger panel and even better discussion. My name is Derek Wandera. Thanks for having me, and have a good weekend.